Mark Levin doesn't even know what he used to talk about, much less what he's apparently talking about now. One of the things that I bring up when I talk about economics these days is that what we are experiencing in terms of the CPI, a rise in consumer prices, the consumer price index, which has been on the rise, is not inflation. It's not inflation. It is a rise in consumer prices caused by supply shock. That's not inflation because it can go down just as quickly. Otherwise, you just have inflation and deflation and inflation. Inflation is a constant ascension of the cost versus the worth of your money. Think of, I don't know, how much does a television in Japan cost? Let's see. Cost of TV in Japan, yen. Yeah. So the cost of a 40-inch flat screen TV in Tokyo is 39,786 yen, which is probably $397.86. Probably about there. Probably move that way, and that's basically dollar to dollar what you're effectively paying for that. But because of how their money is allocated and what they use as far as a central bank and yada yada, the number has just shrunk to be like effectively a nickel in the conversation about money, right? So that would be inflation. That's a constant inflating of cost based on the worth of your money and how much money is in circulation, whether you put money in circulation or you take it out. And our country, we buy treasuries and we take money out of circulation and back and forth. Okay. Yeah, $309.99. Exactly, Beck. That's basically what you're seeing there. So you can kind of, anytime you want to look at a price in Japan, depending on the exchange rate, you can pretty much just move put a period after in front of the last two numbers, and you'll basically get the dollar cash price. But the way their money is lined up, that the value of their money versus what they can buy with it has gone down so much that prices have inflated in Japan over time, and they just kind of they've like compensated for that amount by just understanding that's the number and moving on, because they buy and sell things on the international market using the U.S. dollar. Another example why the U.S. dollar, there is no petrodollar. That whole concept is fucking stupid. I don't know how many times I have to tell people that, because almost everything internationally is traded in euros or dollars. And most of the time, even when it's in euros, it goes to dollars first. Dollars are used not just for petroleum exchange, but for goods and services and all kinds of stuff worldwide. And nobody thinks like, well, there's a Samsung dollar and a petrodollar and a television dollar. It's silly. So anyways, we have a rise in CPI caused by supply shock directly related to COVID. That's what we're going through. That's life. That's reality. That's the truth. That's where we are. And the Fed is not going to be able to have any impact overall on inflationary numbers by raising interest rates. What they are going to be able to do is allow the United States to get a lot of the world's investors to invest in the United States as a debt point more than anyone else, by having like 3% versus 0.25%, as far as what when you get a bond or whatever, you'll get more of a return buying a U.S. bond than a European bond or any other country's bond. So we'll get that money, and while we'll have to pay interest on it, what we can do with it is worth more than the 3%. If you can have 5 to 7% growth, especially with infrastructure projects, which are there's like a rolling benefit from it over time. If you can borrow money at 3% to do that stuff, the stuff that you build will make you 7% over time, or 10 or 12% when it's roads and stuff. Like the amount of money that the U.S. has made off of our interstate highway system, our trains, and ultimately even the internet, in the bonds. Yeah, an I bond is 962, right? that is worth more to you than the shaky stock market or the Nikkei or any other European stock market for sure. Yes, U.S. bonds are golden and they're just getting better. So there you go. You can't sustain 5% growth. No, you're not going to do 5% growth. The growth, that's not what the payment comes back on. Everything is like overall GDP growth is different than the money you make back from certain projects. Anyways, so yeah, Levin's got his book out. He's going to talk about Marxism, but the title of this one is Bidenflation. Get it? Bidenflation. Now, I'm going to guess, because Mark Levin is a dolt, that we're going to hear a lot of inflation gibberish, and that if only Biden would allow people to drill for oil, we wouldn't be in this, because that's the only recognition of a supply shock impact that you're going to see in anybody on the right's conversation, and largely anybody in the Democratic Party when they're on the news or any kind of like this is on the Blaze, so he can talk shit all he wants. He has to make a little more sense if he's on Fox or Fox Business, but just barely. So here you go. Oh, Gabe, happy birthday. I'm 50 years old. Look at you. I'm older than you. It's true. All right, here we go. Let's see what Mark Levin has to say about Bidenflation.
Causes inflation.
All right, this is quiet too. I had to turn this up.
What causes inflation?
We know what causes inflation. Too much money in the system, right, dum-dum?
Government.
Okay. Government causes inflation. Well, then it also causes deflation. It causes the amount of money and the lack of money. It causes liquidity crises. It causes everything then. No, it fucking well does not.
You know, it's interesting.
Yes, I do.
Private sector couldn't cause inflation if it wanted to. How?
No, it can cause a shock rise in the CPI because they extended their supply chains too far. And because of COVID, while we have oil pumping at almost 2018 levels, the refineries are not at that capacity, and therefore gasoline and diesel fuel made from that oil is not as readily available. It's still below 2019 numbers.
How would it do it?
It would do it by running out of stuff or limiting supply on purpose, price fixing. They could collude to raise prices anyways.
Private sector can't print money.
Neither can the government.
If you borrow more than you can pay in the private sector, you go bankrupt.
No, you don't. Well, I mean, you do, but you stay around. And by the way, when did we borrow more than we can pay? And again, this goes to we have a $30 trillion debt, right? That's the whole thing, like $30 trillion in debt, including what we shored up over COVID, okay? The U.S. GDP is $26 trillion. That's per year. $26 trillion a year. Yeah, I'm trying to raise this up a little bit. He's quiet for some reason. I'll see if I can jack this up some. Imagine if your entire debt, everything that you owe in the world, your house, your car, whatever money you have on your business, everything, all that debt, your student loans, everything, was equal to 1 year's salary. If you just didn't spend any of your salary at all on food and stuffs and all that kind of stuff, don't I get bored of explaining this remedial babble? I do sometimes, but there's so many people who still don't know it. It's crazy. Hal should offer to go on Levin's show to educate him and his audience. I'd do it in a heartbeat. He wouldn't have me, though. But, you know, imagine if your debt, if your house, I mean, like if you're old, it's not that hard to imagine. Some people are already there. But imagine if all the money you take in a year as your salary, all the money that you take in and stuff is about 1/8 shy of your entire debt, everything, including houses you have built that will be built into the future. Hal, you don't want to be pouted at for half an hour, right? And Mr. Producer, this is, I gotta have him take his glasses off at me because he's...
Might even go to prison.
Yes, yes, debtors prison. That's what it is. The United States government is going to go to debtors prison, according to American Marxist author Mark Levin.
Got all kinds of Ponzi schemes. People are caught. They go to prison.
Right? You seem upset.
But the biggest Ponzi scheme is the federal government.
No, it is not. All right. The fact that this asshole has a show, lives in the United States, is a taxpayer, hasn't given up his citizenship, isn't moving anywhere else, just proves to you that he doesn't believe this at all. The U.S. government is not a Ponzi scheme. And I don't see this, by the way, this guy going after military spending, I'm guessing, or Social Security. Social Security is probably the one where he thinks it's over leveraged because the U.S. government borrows against it. We also pay back against it. And the only reason we have trouble sometimes getting close to, we haven't defaulted ever, but the only time we ever get close to that is the Republicans not wanting to raise the debt ceiling as we move forward because a hurricane hit and we have to pay for it.
And the way it steals money out of our trust funds, Social Security, Medicare have no money left in their trust funds. The Highway Trust Fund doesn't exist anymore.
Well, it doesn't have to. We're getting a infrastructure bank now. Thank you, Joe Biden.
Exists in name, but they still stole the money out of there too.
Oh, did they? Who's they? They? Oh, you mean the people who started the Iraq and Afghanistan wars?
If every one of these members of Congress had to face the same thing the private sector faces, we'd put a crime tape right around the Capitol building and give them each at least 5 years.
No, actually, you wouldn't. Unless you want to throw Donald Trump in jail for all of his defaults over the years and his fraud, where he lied to the bank about the worth of his properties to borrow more money than he could actually pay back. But you didn't, did you, Mark? You voted for him.
For embezzlement, for fraud, for
embezzlement,
God knows what. But because they do it on your behalf, they're compassionate, they're righteous, and they're destroying the country.
They're destroying the country because they bailed people out during COVID. And, they want when you're dealing with like Wall Street excesses, I mean, you have to. You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs, right, Mark? But when it comes to people being trapped indoors for fucking 18 months to 2 years because of a contagious disease that could kill them and was ruining businesses all over the place and was happening worldwide, this is something the whole world went through, that sucks.
Now, way back last March, not this past one, the one before in 20...
How do you ever miss MTV? I was never on MTV. So no. I missed the channel. If that's what you mean.
21, we played on the radio show, a small audio clip. Even before, it was about 2-3 weeks before they passed the so-called rescue plan.
So-called rescue plan. Mark didn't need rescuing. Mark, he wrote a book about Marxists. The Heritage Foundation bought a couple 100,000 copies to get him on the bestseller list, because that's his deal with the Blaze and Fox, that they do that money shuffle for him. He didn't need rescuing. You needed rescuing, you fucking freeloaders.
With another 1.9 trillion or whatever the hell it turned out to be.
Yeah, 2.4 trillion for the American military over 10 years is necessary, and I personally believe it is. But 1.9 trillion to rescue the entire economy when the rest of the world is cratering, waste of money.
And I said at the time that they have just sparked historic inflation.
Right, because he thinks that this is because of too much money in the system. By the way, liquidity is an element of too much of money in the system. How much money is liquid? Everybody knows about that when there's the system is flush with money, there's plenty of liquidity, right? Everywhere. When you have too little money in the system, you have a liquidity crisis. Yeah, solvency, right? This is May 31st, 2022. Analysis. Treasury market faces liquidity risks as Fed pairs balance sheet. There is not enough money floating around in the system for all the people who have to make bond payments in the frigging world. This whole, like, all they do is print money and they dump it on the system as if all the money just goes in the United States. That the average consumer is now just got way too much money. That's the problem. Anybody watching my show got way too much money? If you do, buy me a coffee on Venmo. You don't even have to have way too much, even if you have a little too much. I don't have a little too much. I've got a kid. No one with a kid has too much money. Especially if they haven't gone to college yet. But we are hedging towards a liquidity crisis because there isn't enough money in the world system. And when it gets loaned into existence, it gets loaned into these giant banks that are more apt to give that money out to giant institutions and countries than it is to the average US citizen. The prices in the United States are not going up because Americans have so much money that everybody's raising their prices on everything because, man, we can get a handle on that scratch. Like we're suddenly the Japanese yen again. Meanwhile, what's right around the corner? Hold on. Here you come. Yeah, anybody? Hold on. Oh, you rat. Why'd it do that? Here you go. Let's see if this is the video. All right. Getty, the makings of demand-led deflation. Regardless of lingering supply chain issues, he speaks with Juliet Sally and Rashad Salamat on Bloomberg Markets Asia. This is on Bloomberg, which I guarantee. Here you go. Let's see. What retail and inventory misses and markdown signal about the market's fight against inflation? A warning sign of recession is when inventory builds exceed what can be absorbed by a weakening consumer. Walmart and Target's big misses last week may signal a shift in consumer spending from goods to services. But when the two of the biggest retailers in the world get inventory so wrong, it could be a sign of worse things to come and just how hard it is to fight inflation. Abercrombie Fitch's weak results didn't help. Weak as in low, not the weak. Inventories are through the friggin' roof. Suddenly, and housing market. Here you go. Homes listed for sale jump amid price reductions and sagging sales. Inventory in housing means homes listed for sale. That drives prices down.
And because of what they're doing, they will destroy our energy sector and energy independence.
No, they won't. And again, this is so stupid. Hold on. U.S. energy. Oh, you bastard. Go back. Hold on. April 1st. Yeah, here you go. Why are gas prices so high if the U.S. is energy independent? Well, you're like, but we aren't. Yeah, we are. Unfortunately, energy independence can't keep U.S. gas prices down, and it isn't enough to protect your stock portfolio either. Here's why, and what worried investors should know. This is April 1st. Things have wavered a bunch since then. We've all seen the rising cost of oil and its ripple effect through the economy. That would be supply shock and impact on the CPI. Jesus Christ. Go away. So why are oil and gas prices so high in the U.S.? The nationwide average price is $4.24. It's gone up since. Prices are global, not local. A fundamental economic concept. The law of one price can help understand what is going on. In short, the concept explains that even though the U.S. produces more oil than we use domestically, We buy and sell it on the global market. This means that buying pressures and supply shortages in other parts of the world impact the cost here, even if we produce oil here and use it here. In fact, if there's money to be made, you can buy oil in the U.S. at a different price. You could buy in the U.S., then sell internationally and profit from the difference. And here's the thing. Fucking Levin, he has to know this, which means he's not just an asshole, he's a liar.
That's long before the monster Putin invaded Ukraine.
Putin.
It's long before so much of what Biden blames on his problems or our problems, he blames on other people. He's no Harry Truman with the buck stops with him. For him, the buck stops with everybody else.
Taking responsibility for something and recognizing where an assault comes from, for example, is not the same thing.
That's the Biden doctrine. And so I want to start this, and I want to confront Mr. Reich. I can't confront him personally.
Oh, I guess he's referencing Robert Reich's something he wrote. I don't know. I don't pre-watch these things. So one would think, and maybe I'm the only person who does this, that if you're going to reference something that somebody says, fucking put that thing up so people know what the hell you're talking about.
He won't show up.
I'll show up. What do you want to talk about? I mean, I won't defend Robert Reich's stuff because both of you are talking out of your ass, but...
We tried in the past, and so we stopped trying. So I'll confront him this way as I have also in the past. Go.
Go.
Inflation. Everybody's talking about it, but ignoring one of its biggest causes.
He's going to say price gouging by the oil companies.
Corporate concentration.
Corporate concentration. Like monopolies? Is that what he's saying? How corporate greed drives inflation.
Just stop for a minute.
Oh, this is why he was defending companies in the beginning.
Corporate concentration. What exactly happened between the time that Donald Trump was president and Joe Biden was president? Did something happen with corporations? Was there more concentration or less concentration? No. Well, why didn't we have inflation under...
Well, actually, technically there was, because under Trump, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of companies and secondary companies shut down, and a lot of people did stock buybacks, for example. So you have sort of a unitary board reaction that happened coming forward, especially in a time when people had lost tremendous profits during the pandemic, which is what they pay dividends on, which makes their stock worth something, and they might try to make up for it after the fact.
You're Donald Trump. I mean, inflation.
And a bunch of people died because he didn't give a rat's ass.
So-called was like, what was it, 2%, 3%? Interest rates, 2.5%, 3.5% tops if you didn't get a good rate. So this thing about corporate concentration is nonsensical. Also,
we're not talking about mortgage rates. He's more than likely, Reich is talking largely about like retail costs and gas and oil. We'll see.
Nonsensical. And think about corporate concentration. Even if you had a concentration of oil companies, which we do not anymore, but you still need a lot of capital in order to invest in drilling and other aspects of oil production. It's a very complicated, very...
Get on with it, Mark. You're boring us.
Labor-intensive, very capital-intensive industry.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with the conversation.
It's not like setting up a computer company or something. Right?
Yeah, computers are so untechnical. There's really nothing to it. Obviously, you just plant a computer tree and get a basket and just wait, I think, right? You could just nap under the computer tree.
Software.
What kind of wait
company?
Yeah, software companies. Yes, there's nothing technical about software companies. What the fuck?
You need some concentration because you can't have 10,000 little companies. It doesn't work that way.
Well, first of all, by the way, anybody remember the lady with the lip licking thing from the QAnon? Can I just say for the record that this dude, Greg Kelly, like a bunch of them do a lot of this, like, and Rudy Giuliani, they never call that shit out.
even though we do have our independence, and there is a significant concentration. But that said,
Jesus Christ, we're just going to talk in circles.
the answer isn't there's too much private sector concentration. The answer is the centralized government.
We don't have a centralized government. We have a decentralized government. We have state governments. We have a federal overseeing government, but we have a House, a Senate, the presidency, and the Supreme Court, and a constitution that it's based on. We don't have a fucking monarchy, you goon.
Because again, as I said, under Trump, we didn't have these issues. And keep something
Yes, we did. We were headed into recession in February of 2020.
else in mind. We were drilling like hell under Trump. He opened up the Alaska reserves, and
We weren't drilling in the Alaska reserves, fucko. The price cratered. Jesus Christ. We were drilling under Trump. Hold on. I mean, it's like, I mean, do I even have to fucking try anymore? Christ almighty. Yeah, you overdid it, Dumbo. And then the entire market crashed. And Russia and Saudi Arabia were in a Mexican standoff over raising oil production to the point where we had to pay Mexico to stop pumping oil. And they're still under that deal. And we didn't, yeah, right, Betsy. We didn't go to Anwar. What? Good Lord.
by the way, the Alaska reserves, the wildlife reserves, it sounds like, oh, that's for the wildlife. They set that up for drilling decades ago, half a century ago.
They did?
They said all of the rest of Alaska is off limits to drilling. This one area, this reserve, you can drill. And now they've turned that into, no, that reserve, we got to protect that reserve.
Yeah, it's weird because they took all the production out of that area and said, just wait, don't do anything. And then all of a sudden, that's where all the wildlife is. It's so odd.
We would never have the pipeline in Alaska that we have now if these same people were in charge, quite frankly.
They were in charge. That's your complaint about Biden, is he's been in government for so goddamn long.
We would not. But if you're shutting down pipelines,
We're not shutting down. The pipeline wasn't open. It did not affect the amount of oil in the friggin' market.
shutting down nuclear power plants, you're shutting down hydroelectric plants, you're shutting
No one is shutting down hydroelectric plants. What are you talking about? We haven't shut down any nuclear plants either.
down fracking, you're shutting down offshore drilling.
We didn't shut down fracking. We didn't shut down offshore drilling. Refineries are the problem.
You're making
Jesus.
it virtually impossible to actually drill on lands that you have leased. Oh, we've leased 9,000 leases. Yeah, but you don't give the licenses to drill.
We do give them, but you have to actually do an environmental impact study to make sure that you're not filling our groundwater with oil and methane and toluene and benzene.
You're slow walking them.
Yeah, slow walking them. Again, here's the other thing. They're extra leases. You know, like Biden gave 34% more leases in his first year than Trump did in his first year. The rest of those leases are all still online. The number of oil sites that are producing oil in the United States have not materially changed since 2018. The exploration that goes on, if anything, they've become more efficient and produced more oil and gas.
What do you think's going to happen? And if your ideology says, and they do, climate change, which is the degrowth movement, which grew up
The degrowth movement. That's right.
out of Europe, which is a commie movement, anti-capitalist movement, the
You can tell because the windmills kill bald eagles first and foremost.
green movement. The green movement means no movement. But we've got to move
I don't know. If I eat greens, I tend to have a movement.
to new technologies. Well, which one? Where are these new technologies? Electricity. Well, we're going to have brownouts and blackouts now because we don't have enough electricity.
No, we aren't.
Where does electricity come from? It doesn't come from that.
Oh, that's weird. You haven't found a way to. Can we hook him up to a generator?
What does it come from? Mostly fossil fuels.
Right, but the idea is to transition away from that and have a smart grid where you can share it across the country, where the windy places have wind energy, the places with geothermal and hydropower can share it, places with a lot of sunlight like the West can just blanket them in solar panels and share that with the rest of the country. Then you don't need to burn all these fossil fuels, and the skies are nicer and the water's cleaner and life is better, and you don't send 100,000 kids to the emergency room every year with asthma-related illnesses because of pollution.
Particularly coal. Now what do you do? Solar. Solar? Solar?
Solar.
Oh, yes, and wind. And wind?
Yes, wind.
Yes. Less than 5% of our energy in this country.
Yeah, and it used to be less than 1%. You see how that works, Dumbo?
See, this is the problem.
This is the problem. I don't read.
These people don't think 2 minutes ahead.
What are you talking about? The whole point of it, we're talking about like net zero by 2030.
They're always transitioning.
Yes, they're always transitioning, because if you only think 2 minutes ahead, you might just cut everything off, but you want a gradual exchange over. Jesus Christ.
They're always transforming. They're always...
Right. Why can't they just find a perfect physical form like Mark Levin has and stick with it?
Undermining.
Undermining. Yes. Progress always undermines everyone.
Always have the stirring the pot. That's what the Democrats...
Yeah, it's all they got. They can't leave well enough alone. They're always just like, oh, there's lead in the water. Well, there was always lead. When I was a kid, that's how you got a boner. You had lead in your pencil.
That party stands for. That's what the American Marxist movement stands for.
Oh, I see. So it's, again, book plug. But also, asshole, just saying, is that, I don't know who those are. Is that Melania and Dan Balls from Newsmax? I'm pretty sure that's who those are.
They don't appreciate what we have. They don't appreciate the complexity of society. And they don't appreciate how capitalism and freedom work. They're all about, I have the ideas. I know how things work. We're going to ignore history. And we're going to do what I say because I'm so smart.
Yeah, I'm so smart. If they knew what was smart, we would, I mean... That's why we have flint and steel, okay? We don't need nuclear reactors. Why do they keep having to look to the future?
Go.
Undeniably rising. In response, the Fed is about to slow the economy, even though we're still at least 4 million jobs short of where we were before the pandemic.
4 million jobs short of where we were because of the pandemic. That's not why the Fed is going to, quote unquote, slow the economy. What the Fed is trying to do now, and they're late.
Well, he knows that. He knows that they're not trying to do it just for jobs. They're trying to mitigate inflation, and at the cost of the employment market. But like that's always the balance that they always talk about, the sort of Volcker balancing act.
They had their foot on the...
By the way, both of these guys are assholes. They're both talking out of their keister. It's largely nonsense, and it's not applicable. Not only have I shown you guys repeatedly that every time we've had a major inflationary spike in this country in the last 50 years, it has been preceded in the year or the year and a half before it by a spike in oil and gas prices that adds that cost onto everything. And then everything goes into a deflationary crash afterwards because everybody reacts to it as if it's a monetary supply problem when it fucking well isn't. Not only that, have I shown you that part of it, but none of them were preceded by something like COVID. It was a double whammy.
The gas pedal, even while the drunken Marxists in Congress, aka the Democrats and Biden, were spending and spending.
They weren't. A lot of it was loans that get paid back. This is the same argument we heard after 2008.
And spending. This is so predictable. Even some Democrat economists, Lawrence Summers and others, Diamond, who runs J.P. Morgan, and
yeah, total Democrats.
Other Democrat, they've all said it's inflation and we're definitely headed for a recession. It's not even about...
That's because we always head into a recession when the Fed corrects inflation by raising interest rates. They trigger a recession on purpose. The problem is this has nothing to do with how much money is in the system. It's a question of supply. There's not enough stuff. There's not enough gas and oil being processed. Not enough gas, like liquid natural gas, being converted to regular gas in the European market, so they're buying up our gas, and it's raising the cost over the entire the world over.
Not jobs anymore. It's about can you survive on the income you have? Many people are on pensions and Social Security. And here's the problem.
Right. But again, that has to do with the fact that we're in a worldwide supply shock caused by like the overextension of global supply chains for the last 3 decades since China came online and the Soviet Union fell, and there was a big race to like, where's the cheapest place to assemble this stuff? Let's do it there. And we're just retracting from that, and that's not going to be painless.
When you do this to the currency, when you weaken the currency...
The currency isn't fucking weak, Jesus Christ. Like, this is... Ugh, hold on. This is fucking... this is so aggravating. This is... When is this? 5 hours ago, okay? Can I... Let's hear this again, if I may. Listen to this asshole again, please. Please, just for me.
Many people are on pensions and Social Security. And here's the problem.
Here's the problem.
When you do this to the currency.
When you do this to the currency.
When you weaken the currency.
When you weaken the currency.
By effectively printing so much money.
By effectively printing so much money.
Trillions.
Trillions of dollars. There's too much money in the system, and you weaken the currency, then what? Then, oh shit. Dollar advances as U.S. job growth tops expectations. U.S. dollar index is up 0.2%. Upbeat jobs data supports case for continued Fed tightening. The U.S. dollar rose against a basket of currencies on Friday after a better-than-expected U.S. employment report pointed to a tighter labor market that could keep the Federal Reserve on an aggressive path of interest rate hikes. Non-farm payrolls increased by 390,000 jobs last month, the Labor Department said in its closely watched unemployment report on Friday. Economists polled by Reuters had forecast payrolls increasing by 325,000 in May. The U.S. dollar currency index, which tracks the greenback against 6 other major currencies, was 0.4% higher at 102.16 after rising as high as 102.22 following the jobs report. It's worth more than it's worth. For the week, the index was up 0.5%. We had a pretty solid non-farm payrolls number, said Min Trang, senior currency trader at Silicon Valley Bank in Santa Clara, California. The strong jobs data is supportive of the expectations of additional rate hikes going into the second half of the year, Trang added. The Fed has raised interest rates by 0.75 of a percentage point this year, and most Fed policymakers back raising interest rates another 0.5 of a percentage point at each of their next 2 meetings. This, how many... why am I boy. I'm not an economist, but I can fucking read. How many times do you have to be, these assholes have to be wrong about something before they go, oh, you know what? Every time I bring this up, I'm talking out of my ass. Listen to what this dickhead just said.
It's not even about jobs anymore. It's about can you survive on the income you have? Many people are on pensions and Social Security. And here's the problem. When you do this to the currency, when you weaken the currency by effectively printing so much money, trillions, borrowing so much money, spending so much money by the federal government, you squeeze out the private sector, number one. Number 2.
You squeeze out the private sector. What? What do you mean you squeeze out the private sector? What do you think that like all the infrastructure projects in the United States are all just hired federal workers? It's largely contractors. Cement mixers, asphalt makers, like all that shit. We don't have a U.S. factory that makes fiber optic cable.
2, it takes more dollars to buy the same thing as before.
Bullshit. It takes more dollars to transport the same thing as before. That's it.
Number 3,
Number 3, since I've been wrong about the other 2, go.
it takes more dollars to produce the same thing as before.
Yeah. Now that's where we get, we'll find some agreement, Mark. Why is that? Why does it cost that much more to produce those things? Why? Because we used to do it in China, but because of Xinjiang, a lot of factories are being moved out of there. Apple just announced, if I may, okay, here we go. Apple will reportedly move some iPad capacity to Vietnam after China lockdowns. Guess what? That's a pilot program. The iPad is now going to be made in Vietnam in a matter of 2 years. They can't do it all at once. They're going to transition. They're always transitioning. Go. Apple is reportedly moving some of its iPad production to Vietnam from China after supply chain disruptions stemming from coronavirus lockdowns in and around Shanghai caused global repercussions. That's not stopping anytime soon, by the way. And if you're a company, do you trust that's never going to happen again? If Xi Jinping is still running the place, this is going to be a regular part of life. Apple has also asked some component suppliers to bulk up their inventories to guard against future supply chain snags, Nikkei Asia reported Wednesday, which is if you're producing certain chips and the like, that's a anti-innovation over time. If you spend too much time doing it. I mean, obviously they're going to go, we're expecting to sell this unit and we're expecting to sell this many. Then you're starting to get in whether the stock is going to, the price of the stock will be worth about, in comparison to, well, they stacked up a bunch of chips and then they didn't end up selling those. So they're going to eat the cost of those things and that's going to eat into their bottom line. That becomes more of a factor when you do something like that. But apparently it's worth it compared to trying to run things out of China. Supply chain woes have clearly affected the company. In its second quarter, Apple paid iPad revenue was down 1.92% year over year. CEO Tim Cook said the segment had a very significant supply constraints during the quarter. This is absolutely true. They're down almost 2%. I haven't been able to replace mine because of that, because they're not available. If you go to the AT&T or the Verizon store or wherever you have it, and you have one of the ones that uses cellular, because when I'm traveling, it's one of the backups that I have for when I'm doing the show. I decided to go all in and have one of those. I wanted to replace that one because it's messed up and it's old. And they don't have them. They're out. No amount of money is going to allow you to get a new one.
Prices go up.
Right, because you're going to have to pay more labor costs.
The value of the dollar goes down.
Bullshit.
Prices go up.
And this is his whole, you can't pay people higher wages. By the way, wages are going to come down this fall for the same reason with the Fed inflation. They're just going to trigger deflation before the holidays.
The value of the dollar goes down.
And none of that is fucking true right now, you dolt. Seriously. Just seriously. And again, that's not just one source. Hold on. Well, here you go. By the way, there are reasons the dollar is still king. Yeah, it is. And it's going to stay that way. Oh, hold on. Be right back. Hold on one moment. Hold. Cam? It's time for FaceTime with Mom. Sorry, momentary FaceTime. I went over. I'm over 5-minute timing on this. Hi.
And when you choke off the fuel that drives the engine of this economy, fossil fuels, for some
which we're not doing.
imagined technology that's there tomorrow.
Which we're not doing at all. No one is doing that.
May be there one day. It's not there today. It's not.
And nobody's expecting it to. Is anybody, like I have solar panels on my house. Anybody else expect to be able to go out and shut off power to the grid and just run off solar panels? Anybody? Nobody.
There
Right.
tomorrow. And you create shortages, and that's what's coming.
No, it isn't.
Shortages.
No, it isn't.
Hello. Shortages of.
Hello. Okay. Well, let's hold on. Here it comes. You guys ready? You think he's ready for this? Hello. Hold on. Let's run that clip again.
May be there one day. It's not there today. It's not there tomorrow. And you create shortages, and that's what's coming. Shortages. Hello. Shortages of gasoline and oil.
Here it is. Hello. Shortages. You heard it. Here it is. Here he comes. You guys ready? Oh, this is so good. This is going to irritate the shit out of these guys. Oh, God. Oil producers said they would raise by 50% a planned production increase after U.S. lobbying to ease price pressures. The group of oil-producing nations known as OPEC Plus agreed on Thursday to a larger increase in supply than planned for July and August. The White House hailed the higher output as a diplomatic breakthrough after months of lobbying Middle East oil giants to raise production to ease price pressures. Administration officials said on Thursday that President Biden would visit Saudi Arabia, which effectively leads OPEC Plus this month. His trip could signal a thawing of relationships between Biden and the Crown Prince. It's not going to, but after the president vowed to turn Saudi Arabia into a pariah. Hold on. Hello. Shortages. Hello. Shortages. Hello.
That's what's coming, not just high prices. What the hell do you think's going to happen to the economy?
Well, actually, deflation. Inflation will melt by 2023. Let's just grab this next one. Makings of demand-led deflation. Biden says Fed targeting inflation, China tariffs under review. 3 scenarios for inflation, central banks. 3 scenarios for inflation, central banks. April ISM forward review. Inflation versus deflation, which is the bigger threat in 2022. Can you imagine hearing this conversation anywhere on CNBC right now?
What does that have to do with private sector businesses causing inflation? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Producer. Get your own button. Just get a Stream Deck, you jerk. Push your own button.
And millions of American workers won't get the raises they deserve. Republicans haven't wasted any time hammering Biden.
Wait, by the way, I'm assuming this is cut down some. I don't know if this is the full video that Robert Reich put up. So any statement I make about this, I don't trust that he's playing the whole thing unedited. I don't know, though.
And Democratic lawmakers about inflation.
Skyrocketing inflation.
Inflation.
But don't fall for their fear-mongering.
Fear-mongering? Are people fear-mongering about inflation? I'll tell
Yes.
you something interesting.
Well, no, they're fear-mongering about the idea that we're printing money, it's a debt issue, and that there's too much money in the system. That's the fear-mongering part, because they want the blame to fall on the Biden administration or the government itself for trying to help people during COVID, and that government can be a positive solution. It goes entirely against their philosophy. That's what that is. That's what the fear-mongering is.
You know, we have a home in Florida. You can see this is the studio there in Florida. That's where I am.
Oh, that explains the glisten on your dome.
I was here a month ago. The price of regular gallon was $4.19. The same gas station, 3.5 weeks later, is $4.75.
Yeah, we're dealing. Russian oil has been kicked out of the market. We're no longer buying it. It's off the market in the world. That removed about an eighth of the world's supply. That's basically going to be the impact until other stuff can come online and the refineries can come back online. Again, causing the price to crater.
In 3.5 weeks. In 3.5 weeks, it went up almost 60 cents.
Yeah, and nothing's happened in the last 3.5 weeks geopolitically across the world that has anything to do with oil and gas.
Now, if you're on a fixed income, if you're earning minimum wage, or you're in the middle class.
So you're asking, we should provide a relief. Since it's a global problem, the federal government should probably, I don't know, maybe give people a tax credit on the rising cost of fuel for next year. You think you'd be for that?
You have 3, 4, 5 kids, and you have all these other expensive burdens. The price of food shooting up, the price of clothes.
By the way, the idea that Mark Levin gives a goddamn about people on fixed income with 5 kids is laughable.
Clothing shooting up. I mean, how do you make ends meet? This isn't some theory. This isn't some game. This isn't some opportunity to attack the private sector. The private sector didn't do this. Oil companies try to produce oil. Who do you...
Yeah, but they also try to refine that oil into a usable fuel. Do you put oil into your tank, Mark?
You think's applying for permits?
Builders, marchers, protesters, campers, hunters. What kind of permits are we talking about?
And leases. That is...
Oh, renters. Leasers? Is a renter a leaser? A leaser a renter?
Leases to drill.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Now, I'm an oil man, and this is my boy. I drink your milkshake.
And being turned down, it's the oil companies. You're in the business to sell oil, not to withhold oil. And they sold oil during Trump, and they have less oil now.
No, they don't.
And why would you?
Well, by the way, there's less oil in the market, so they can sell oil at a higher price. That's why.
Invest a lot of capital in drilling for oil when they won't let you drill. And they're...
Well, I guess you're not going to invest that money at all. I don't... Like, you're just standing there with a big pile of cash in your hand.
Telling you your business is going to go out of business by 2050. How does...
Well, they're transitioning to energy companies. That's what the ones that are going to stick around are doing. By the way, you do realize that technology moves forward, right? What am I talking? Look who I'm talking to. This asshole thinks there's a computer tree.
How does that work?
Because apples grow on it.
And what are we going to do with all these electric cars that these elitists in Washington and New York City and LA are telling you to buy at $100,000 a clip?
These elitists. Hold on, get out of here. We'll put in. Let's see. Let's just build our own. Here's the 2022 F-150. Due to a combination of high demand and global supply chain constraints, not all models and trims are available. Tram. there's the Pro, the XLT, the Lariat. Man, these elitist truck drivers, man. You know what I mean? Like, look at these. Here's the Platinum. That's 90,000. That's what these elitists in Congress drive. But you and I, let's go with the XLT, shall we? It's 52,000. That's pretty crazy. Look at that thing. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. What do? We do black? Nah. I think the blue's nice. Red's good. Look at that. That's solid. Doesn't give you that electric thing. Powertrain, we'll do. Look at that. Look at this elitist undercarriage. Dual motor extended range battery. Yes. Oh my gosh, that makes it way more expensive. That's what the cost between that and the XLT is. Tow package. Wheels, alloy. Look at it. Look at those things. Those are sexy. All season 20-inch tires. Okay, those are all seasons. There you go. Bed divider, no. Toolbox, no. We'll do all that aftermarket. Bed liner, hello. Storage boxes, okay. Running boards, sure. Exterior, look at the interior of this thing. This elitist monstrosity. What are they going to want you to? What they're going to want you to buy? Why is this? Why are the pictures? There you go. Look at that thing. Look at just gross. What they're trying to make you get. Look at this. These elitists in Washington want you to buy these things. 74,000 with all tricked out with the red paint. And that's because I added the extended battery. I know. These elitists. You can run your house off that thing for 3 days.
You're going to plug them in? What's
that
going to do to the grid?
Yeah. You're going to suck off the grid, you freeloader? It's actually going to draw at night because the charger actually draws when there's less impact on the grid, like not during business hours. So you'll use less power even then and buy it at a lower rate.
You already have brownouts and blackouts in California, and there's
the lights are going to dim as everybody plugs in their F-150s.
now a warning. We're going to have shortages of fuel and brownouts and blackouts. How did that happen in 18 months?
It didn't happen in 18 months. You made it up. You're fantasizing about brownouts that aren't going to happen. We've had brownouts in California before. They're not new to, and by the way, they're always Democrat governors' faults, apparently. Hold on. Let's see. I just want to look something up. No. Hold on. There we go. Whoops. I take it back. Hold on. Get out of here. What? Go away. No, thank you. Piss off. Quit it. Hold on. I'm trying to bring this up. Okay, I was wrong. Not all the brownouts and blackouts happened while California had Democratic governors. All right, there we go.
Because of corporations, because of centralized companies.
For all this and much more.
That's the bailout. That's the end of it. Holy smokes. Go, Mr. Producer. Anyways, you guys are wonderful. I gotta go.